Hi everybody, I'm Jennifer Tryon, and in this video I'm going to show you how to turn a quilt block made out of scraps into this cute little zippered box pouch, fully lined and ready for whatever you need it for. So for this project you're going to need a cutting mat, I'm using the rotating one, a ruler, a rotary cutter, you're going to need some scraps of batting, you're going to need a zipper, I'm using a 13-inch zipper, and of course your sewing machine. So the first thing we're going to do is trim our blocks so that they're 8.5 by 8.5. So I'm doing that with a square ruler, and I'm finding the 8.5-inch mark, and I'm just putting it in the corner so I can square these up. And I'm using a rotating cutting mat. I love not having to move the ruler. Once you've got 4 equal blocks, lay them out how you want them to face on the sides of your pouch. So if you want remember your zipper is going to go in the middle. So if you want your V to face the bottom or if you want it to face the top, now's the time to decide that. So I'm going to put my zipper in here, but first I need to sew these 2 blocks together, right sides together. And I do have the stabilizer on the back of them because I want my pouch to be nice and structured. So 1/4-inch seam right along the edge here. If you have a 1/4-inch foot for your machine, now would be a great time to use it. I'm sewing on the Continental M7 from Janome, so I'm going to put on the HP foot. And with the HP foot on my machine, it's sewing that perfect scant 1/4-inch. Next one. So you can see that nice 1/4-inch. I sewed it in blue so you guys could easily see. And go ahead and press your seams open. We want to have as little bulk as possible in the center of our bag. So opening the seams is going to help with that. So I'm just pressing open these seams. There we go, it's looking nice. I'm going to sew it together this way. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut the batting for the back of each of the sides. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut some scraps of batting. You can see I've left about a 1/4-inch, it's nothing perfect, on the outside of my quilt blocks. And this is so I can start quilting off and come on. And I'm just going to quilt straight lines a 1/4-inch on either side of the seam. I did not spray base this. Instead, if you want to, I mean, it stays in place pretty well, but if you're concerned about it shifting, you can spray baste it, but I'm just going to put a couple of straight pins in it just to keep it lying flat while I do the quilting. Again, I'm just going to follow the lines here. It'll look nice. But if you want to do some other kind of quilting, you totally can. You could even put some decorative stitches down here. You could blanket stitch, you could zigzag. I'm just going to use straight line. And I'm going to lengthen the stitch just slightly. And now you might get lucky, and if you do, and your seam lands on the V, you can lift up your presser foot and turn and go straight up the other side. If the strips don't match up, you can't do that, but sometimes you get lucky and they're the same size. So if you do, that's a good little time saver to not have to cut the thread. And you can see I'm just quilting right off of the edge onto that batting, and I'm starting right off of the edge on the batting too. Ooh, lucky, 2 times in a row I got to pivot. A lot of these strips were similar size. If your strips don't meet in the middle, you're just gonna go down the one side of the strip if you're choosing to quilt it this way. And once you get to the seam, lock stitch. That's the stitch on your machine that looks like a little bullseye. And if you lock stitch, it's gonna knot it in place rather than back stitching, because you don't want it to come out. And then you'll just start the next one. And you're just gonna go ahead and do this to all of the strips. And I'm just using plain white polyester thread, has a bit of a sheen, and I set my stitch at 2.8. So it's a little bit bigger than your regular stitch. When you get to the bottom corner one right here, you might want to put just a little quilting line just at the like 1/2 inch mark, just so it stays put. It'll probably end up getting cut off anyway, but it's just a little extra security, even though there's no extra seam there. You can go very fast on this machine. Quilts it up in no time. Again, I've got just that little corner there, so I'm just gonna put a little row right on the edge just to keep it in place. We'll probably never see it, but it's just there. Okay, so once you've got both sides quilted, we're gonna go ahead and square them up, taking off the extra edges of that batting. So now I've got my 2 quilted sides, and I've trimmed the batting so that it's all nice and squared up. Now yours might be a little bit of a different size than mine. Mine was 8.5 by 16 3/4. But just true yours up. It doesn't really matter in the end if yours is a 1/4 inch bigger or smaller than mine, because we're making these to size anyway. Just make sure your 2 sides are equal and that the batting is trimmed up. So they're all quilted. And then once you know your size, you can cut your liner pieces. So I've chosen this from a fat 1/4. This is a full piece, a full fat 1/4 here that I've chosen. Look at, isn't that so cute with the pigs and the bears and the ducks? Anyway, that's gonna look cute as the lining. But you can also make a scrappy lining too. You could sew a bunch of scraps together and make the lining, but I just chose a fat 1/4. And so I'll set the lining aside for right this second because it's time to work on the zipper. So I have a 13-inch zipper, but like I said, my pieces are 16 3/4. So I'm going to extend the zipper with another scrap, and first I'm going to sew together the ends because we don't want to lose our zipper pull. Now, the zipper that you have at home might already have a zipper stop on, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can make your own zipper stop if you're using zipper tape or zips on a roll. So for this, I'm taking off my HP foot. So you'll be taking off whatever you used for your 1/4 inch, and you can just put on your regular zigzag foot. Soon we'll be putting on the zipper foot, but for right now, we're going to use the zigzag foot still. And you can use a contrasting color of thread if you want, but you don't have to. I'm just going to use white. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my zipper over underneath the presser foot right at the end. So I'm not going too far up. So I'm going in like maybe 1/2 inch, and I'm going to go ahead and lower the presser foot. So what we're going to do here with our regular sewing machine foot on is we're going to choose a zigzag stitch. And then we're going to make that stitch wider than the zipper foot. So I'm going to make it super, super wide. You can see that's going to push the needle way, way over. And then I'm going to make the stitch as short as possible. Basically, so that zigzag just keeps going back and forth, almost right over top of itself. So I'm turning down my stitch length to like 0.5 or 0.1, like almost nothing. And then with the hand wheel, I'm just gonna test to make sure the needle zigs right over top of those feet. And it does. I'm not going to hit. And then you just let it go for like maybe 5 seconds until you get a little buildup, and then lock stitch. It's going to lock it into place. And then what you've done here is made your own zipper stop. So now when the zipper goes all the way down, it's not going to come off. Now, be careful you don't bring it off the other side, because we do need to make a stop for the other side too. And this one's dangerous because the zipper pull is right close. But you're going to do the exact same thing. If you need to pin this so that it'll go underneath your presser foot and stay together, go ahead and do that so that it stays like nice and close together. And then under the presser foot, pull that pin out, and then zigzag right across again. Test it with the hand wheel to make sure it's going to go on either side of that zipper. You don't want to be crashing through the zipper. And then lock stitch when you've got enough of a stop there. And then that's how you make sure your zipper isn't going to go off. So now you can open and close it without the danger of it going off. Now, we are still going to lengthen this zipper. And I've just pulled a scrap from the stash. And I'm going to go ahead and set my zipper and my pieces aside just for a minute. And I'm going to press this so it meets in the middle. And I'm going to press it so the other side meets in the middle too. Basically, I want to make something that measures the same width as my zipper. So this is about just a little over 1 inch. So I'm making my scrap about the same. So I'm folding it towards the middle. Lots of hot steam here, so it stays right down, and then press the other side towards the middle also. Other side, nice and flat. So you can decide how long you want to make the pull. Basically, I want it to measure just enough to get to the ends here, but I'll also keep some for my zipper tab, like my tab. So I'm just going to fold over the end and press it. And then you can either put this on the other side of the zipper stop, or you can put it over and then make the zipper stop be underneath the zipper extension. That's fine too. But we're essentially going to top stitch this down and attach it to the zipper. So back to a straight stitch. And it's okay to sew over the plastic teeth. Just be sure that you're going slow, like don't go top speed or you'll break your needle. Go nice and slow. And if your machine's having trouble even, you could even hand wheel it. And I'm going to back stitch right over to, just to make sure this is nice and straight, or nice and secure. And I'm going to go ahead and top stitch down the rest, just to keep that in place. And top stitch down the other side too. Okay, so now this is longer than it needs to be, but we can use the rest of it on the other side. So I'm just going to trim. There we go. And we've got enough for the other side here. But you'll just measure it out however much you need. So again, I'm going to fold over the end. So I'll just get the actual zipper out of the way. I'm going to put that nice edge just over top of that zipper pull. and just stitch it in place. And I already had the rest of that side top stitched down. So now we've got a zipper that fits. Now your opening of your pouch is just going to be in the center here. For future pouches, you can get zippers that go way off the end if you want, but this is going to work perfectly here. So to start sewing our zipper now, we're going to go ahead and attach our zipper foot to our machine. This is just going to help us get nice and close to the actual zipper. So here's how you're going to lay it down, and you're going to want to go in this order for it to work. Top fabric, then you're going to lay your zipper right side down, and then you're going to take your lining fabric and put it right side down onto the wrong side of the zipper. And then you can either pin or use clips. So now what you're going to do, once you've got it all pinned in place, is you're going to sew with your zipper foot right along the edge of those teeth. And I just went ahead and moved my needle all the way over as close as I could, just to be a little extra close. So by going in this order, it's going to ensure that you have no raw edges on the inside of your pouch. Everything's going to be nice and neat. Don't run over your pins. And keep a feel for when you get to your zipper pull. Because we don't want to sew past the zipper pull, we'll have to move the zipper pull. So otherwise you'd get sort of a wavy line, it wouldn't look nice. So I can see my zipper pull coming up here. So I'm going to stop about an inch before. With my needle down, I'm going to put my presser foot up because it gives us a little more space. And I'm just going to pull that zipper past the presser foot. And just continue sewing. There we go. That way everything stays nice and straight. Back stitch at the end. And now we've got, should look like this. So this is the one side all together, the inside and the outside. Looks good. Now you'll notice that you've got kind of this hump here. We definitely want to top stitch down the right side of the zipper. So I'm going to close the zipper up. I'm going to press this nice and flat. So pull it away from the zipper. Start with the inside to give yourself a bit of a head start because the outside's got all that quilt batting, so it's kind of thick. So away from the zipper and press it right down. Give it a little tug. Try not to iron the zipper pull too much, but try to get it as away from the seam as you can. And then we're going to stitch again all the way along here, you know, fairly close to the edge, still using the zipper foot. And you may want to lengthen your stitch a little bit so it looks a little more decorative. I'm going to go ahead and stitch on a 3. And I'm going to put my needle to the other side now. So I've got to move it over. So my needle's all the way to the right. That way I can get nice and close to the edge. I'm going to back stitch. Take your time during the top stitching. Just pay attention to really making sure it's on the edge and that it's as straight and close to the edge of the quilted part as possible. You don't want it on the zipper tape. You want it right on the edge. And you could use like a different color fabric. You could use a triple stitch here to really not just reinforce the stitches, but give it like a denser look. And again, with the needle down, I'm stopping partway when I'm like about 1.5 inches or 2 inches away from the zipper pull. Press her foot up, pull that zipper foot so it's out of the way, and you just continue. All right, so now that's beautiful. Look at how that's laying nice and flat right along that edge. So now this becomes our zipper piece. This is the zipper, it just has the extra fabric on it. So we're gonna do that same sandwich again. Now, make sure you pay attention to which side you want your V to go. I've gone upwards here. So if I go this way, it's flowing like this. I think we probably want it to echo and be like that. So I'm gonna make sure it goes that way. So with this side up, because I want it to be that way, this is gonna be my zipper piece. So right side facing up, zipper side, even though this has the extra fabric on it, it's still the zipper. This side facing down. And then you want your other liner piece also facing down. And you're gonna pin or clip. And again, I'm gonna move the needle over all the way to the right, or all the way to the left, so I'm just pressing the 1/4 inch on this machine, but all the way over so it's nice and tight there. And now I had slid my zipper pull over, so I'm gonna have to right away make the adjustment and pull that zipper foot down. So find your zipper foot, just get it out of the way, and then I might have to like do it again. That's fine. Just watch for it. Keep your pieces nice and flat, and off you go. All right, I'm coming on the foot again, so I'm just gonna slide it back the other way so I'm past it. Make sure everything in your sandwich here is laying nice and flat, and off you go. This is not the time to win any races on the zipper. When you're doing the quilting, hey, fine, go top speed. Good. And now that's the interior, right like that. And see, look at the difference between how flat with the top stitching this one lays down versus what the big lip you've got on this one. So we're gonna, again, flatten this out. Finger press it first. And flatten it out away from the zipper. Okay, and again, we're gonna top stitch that down. Don't forget to increase your stitch to 3, so it's a little more decorative. I'm getting to that zipper pull. I'm just gonna pull past it, just in case it decides to shift, and then I'll end up with a little wave. But you can feel that it's sewing through that seam that's behind there and flattening it all down, because that's what was leading to that hump, is that big quilt sandwich seam. Okay, looks nice, pretty perfect. Our points are meeting. You can see how it's gonna sew up into such a lovely pouch. The next steps are to box out the pouch. However, before we get to those last steps, we're gonna bling out the front of our bag with one of our little embellishments. I've got this cute little leather homemade tag, or if you got the kit, you would have also gotten the gold one. So you can decide based on the fabrics and based on the feel of your project which little embellishment works the best, or maybe none. Maybe you want to save these for something else. In your kit though, the gold one comes wrapped in this little piece of paper so it didn't get scratched. So just in case you're wondering what that is in there, that's that little homemade embellishment. Because you did make this at home, so it is homemade. I'm going to sew this on before we get to boxing out the pouch because I don't want it to go through the liner. So I'm going to put this not quite in the center. I mean, you could put it at the side over here. You could put it at the middle, up top here. I'm going to choose to put it just in the top of the lower third because I'm going to box this pouch, and that kind of means it's going to be closer to the bottom once it's done. And that's just my own preference. You can do kind of whatever you like, but I'm going to measure up about 2.5, let's go 2 3/4 just to be safe. 2 3/4, and you can put a pin, or if you've got a little marking pencil just to keep it. You're going to want to use your, if you have a machine that has a button, not buttonhole foot, not the automatic buttonhole foot, but the kind of foot that sews a button on. That's what I'm going to use here. So I'm just take off that foot. So when I'm putting on the button foot, the back bar goes where your regular presser foot would go, and then the front bar goes in the front, and then it goes down so that the needle can get through that little window. So I'm going to just hold this, and my center seam is right between the E and the M on the homemade here. And making sure not to have the backing fabric in there. I'm going to bring this over so that the hole is just under my needle, and then I'm going to allow the machine to buttonhole stitch. And on this machine, it looks like a little button. Otherwise, you can use just a zigzag stitch and make your stitch either wider or smaller based on how far you need to be. And just make sure it's centered and straight. Use my little ruler to make sure that it's level with the bottom. And I want to increase that stitch so I can see that it's not going to hit. There we go. Maybe a little less. So I'm just going to hand wheel the first couple of stitches just to be safe, and then I can go ahead and the machine just takes care of sewing that on and locking it into place. And I can just snip it. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Making sure it's lined up. Presser foot down. I'm just going to hand wheel down to make sure the needle hits exactly into that hole, and then hand wheel it over, and then I can start. There we go. Now it looks totally hand stitched on, but only took a few seconds with that buttonhole stitch. Cute with that leather patch. This is a great way to elevate your scraps, adding embellishments like this. Super cute. Okay, so the other thing we need to do to embellish before we box out the seams is put our little, if you want to have a zipper pull tab, something like this on your box pouch that you can hold while you're zipping and unzipping, like that. So we have to prepare that to sew in before we go much further. So I'm going to take the scrap that's left over from when I extended the zipper right here, and I'm going to, because I've already got it folded here, if you need to do a new piece, I'm using 2.5 inches, fold it in, and I'm just going to fold this over one more time like this and give it a press, and then I'm going to top stitch down the whole thing. Take that presser foot off for the buttons, and I'm just going to use my regular zigzag foot for this, and just a regular straight stitch. Right close to the edge, and then along the other side also. And you can see I didn't backstitch at the start or the beginning because the end is going to be in my seam. Okay, so now I've got this nice top stitched, what will be a zipper pull. So I'm gonna just take how long I want it to be, like kind of, just enough to pinch. So let's measure it out so everyone knows exactly how much to pull. So let's do 2.5. And then cut. 2.5. Or if you have less than that, then just measure out what you've got and just kind of make them even. It doesn't have to be absolutely like any given size. It could be super, super small too. If you don't want to have like big wings sticking out, just make it like 1 inch and it can, the tab can be pretty small. So I've got those there. Decide which way you want to be facing. I think probably the way with the scrap that has like the nice embellishment would look good. So just keep that in mind when you're putting it. I'm just going to set it aside for right now, and we're going to get to boxing out our pouch. Okay, so we're now going to start working with these as liner and exterior. So we're going to go ahead and sew right across the edge of the exterior, our quilted piece. So right down here, we're going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And I am backstitching at the beginning. And just make sure it doesn't shift as you're sewing. If you need to pin, especially in the middle or along the way, no problem. Best to pin and not have anything shift. So 3/8, I'm just following that along on the markings on my sewing machine, but you could measure it out if you had to. The reason why I'm doing 3/8 is because I'm gonna open up these seams, and because it's quilted, it's just gonna be a little bit easier to have like a little less bulk all in one place. 1/4 inch is pretty small, especially when you've got a folded over edge that's quilted. And I'm gonna backstitch. So now I'm going to also sew along the liner part, except we do want to leave about, a big enough hole for your hand to go through. So about a fist worth. I'm just going to put a pin there and there so my hand can get through. It also helps line it up, but stop sewing at the pin and then start sewing at the pin. Make sure things are lined up at the top. Again, 3/8 seam allowance is fine. I'm going to backstitch at the beginning. And I'm backstitching at the pin. So I'm starting on the other side of that pin and just backstitch. And backstitch again. Okay, so now we've got that opening for when we need to turn our project right side out. Now, before we go any further and sew anything up, we need to open up our zipper. Open it up because otherwise we won't be able to turn it right side out. So just open it and leave it open. Let me say this again. Open your zipper. Don't forget to open your zipper. Last chance to open your zipper. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the top piece and pull it away from itself and make sure your seam is lined up with your zipper, and we're going to just kind of press this flat. Finger press it first or use your seam roller, and then bring your iron over and you're going to press it. Give it some steam, get that nice and flat so that your bag doesn't have that lump in it. And then same with the other side. Open it up. I'm going to open up that seam. And everything can get flattened. Okay, we're gonna start on the outside first. So while I've got this here, I'm just gonna fold this up and pin it just so it gets out of the way, both sides. So now's when we wanna do our pull tabs. So we've got them sitting on the side and you can just fold it over and you want the raw edge facing the raw edge of your exterior. And then you're gonna open it up and put that right side, the looped side, and the raw edges on the edge of where your zipper is so that it's kind of nestled in there. If you need to pin it so that it stays in place, go ahead and do that. You're gonna sew straight along your edge here and that zipper tab is gonna be completely encapsulated inside your bag. You're gonna do that on both sides. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to just sew right across that edge. If you have enough space for a 3/8 seam allowance, go ahead. And I'm backstitching. Okay, and then just make sure the other sides are back and out of the way. And we're gonna sew along here. Just try to pull as much of that lining fabric out of the way as possible. So we're only sewing over top of the quilted part. And then we're gonna do the same for the lining. This time we're going to keep the quilted part out of the way. And again, when we sew along the lining, we'll just try to pull back as much of that quilted part as we can. If not, that's fine, you can go over a bit. And then the other side. Okay, so now what we want to do is box out the corners. We need to cut a square out of each one of the 4 corners on both the quilted part and the liner part. So I've got a marking pencil and I'm just going to measure 1 1/4 inch over from the seam. So over 1 1/4 and then up 1 1/4 from the seam. So one of the sides is slightly longer and you can cut. So again, from the other side, from the seam up 1 1/4 and then cut. And then same with here, from the seam, so 1 1/4 and 1 1/4. It is a little nerve-wracking cutting into your corners like this. Just be careful not to cut anything you're not supposed to. Last one. Okay, so now all of the corners are cut. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pull it apart like this. So it starts like this. Take your finger and your thumb, pinch it out. Kind of got a fish face here looking up at you, like, well, hello. And pull that fish mouth out, and we're just going to sew it right shut. And you can push your seams over towards the liner, or you can lay them flat, but probably it makes sense to just push it towards the liner. It naturally kind of wants to go that way. So I'm just going to put a pin in there like that and 3/8 of an inch just across. And we're gonna do that for all 4 corners on the exterior. And then all 4 corners on the interior. Back stitching, going over that big hump, and back stitching. And then we'll take the next one towards the lining. Okay, so now all 4 of those are boxed out, and now we need to do the same on the liner. So it's like we're treating 2 different bags here, but this is so that the liner stays free and clear. Just pinning the seam down. Want everything laying as flat as possible. So just do this with all 4. Okay, it's going to be time to turn it right side out. Remember I said to leave your zipper open? This is why. Out it comes. Ooh. And then push that liner in. Now you want to potentially, when you've got your hand inside here, push out all of those boxed corners. Oh, look how nice that looks. There's your pull tab, there's your pull tab. And now the only thing left to do is to stitch closed that inside. I'm gonna go ahead and pin right there so I know where to stop and start, because sometimes when you get this part to the machine, it's hard to tell. You can hand sew this if seeing those stitches bother you, but I'm okay with it. Yep, see, good thing I'm going to all that pin because it looks like it's closed, but it's not. So all the way over, back stitch just before the pin. And there you go. There is your homemade pouch. Now, I'm looking at this and I feel like this could be a smidge higher. So if you're watching this entire thing and you want to put it up 3 inches, maybe that's a good idea based on the boxing and now that I see it. But what a great use of scraps. I love, love, love this. To think this was just sitting in a bin, all of these little scraps, and now we've made this super cute, totally lined zip pouch. And I know you're gonna find tons of great uses for this. You could put it in your purse, in your bag. You could keep all of your, polyester thread in it, or maybe it's a great case for your scissors or something like that. You be the judge. Let us know in the group what you're gonna be putting in your new zip pouch. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.